I stated at the outset that I hope that we would listen very carefully, and I think we have, and that we would learn a lot, and I know I've learned a lot. And I thank all of the panelists for their perspectives and their contributions. Well, as I said, this is an evening to not only learn, but also to listen. And we're here to listen to the community. And so we're going to have a question and answer period. You have some options. You may direct a question to a particular panelist, and that panelist will be asked to answer that question. However, the other members of the panel will also be able to address your question if they so wish. We are going to give you a maximum of 2 minutes each. Pastor Small will hold the mic, and when 2 minutes are up, you're going to hear this little noise there, little louder noise, and we're going to ask you at that point to please wrap up your comments. Again, we're looking for your questions or your comments. If you would feel so inclined to share a comment, or if you have a question that's answered and then you want to comment, we're going to do that. We're going to give you every opportunity to participate in a meaningful way, but we ask you to please observe the 2-minute rule with us. Now, Allison is gone, right? Okay. Oh, Mike, thank you. Mike is going to hand out these little cards. If you would like a card to put a question on, just let Mike know, okay? Mike's in the corner there. There's a hand over there, Mike. Anybody else over here? If you would rather put a written question in rather than a verbal question, we're determined to get as much input as we can. I see the clock is about 7:45. We've got about an hour allocated to this. We'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. I would also ask you that before you ask your question or make your comment, that you give us your name and that you give us where you're from. And don't say just Flamborough. If you're from Flamborough, we'd like Waterdown or Carlisle or Rockton or Orkney or any one of the other 16 settlement areas. If you're from Hamilton, east, west, south, north. If you're from Glanbrook, whether it's Binbrook or Mount Hope, that would be helpful, I think, in terms of where we proceed from here. Let's have some fun with this. Let's respect each other. Let's listen carefully, and let's go from here. The very first question or answer. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yes. I'm from Freelton. And first of all, I want to say...
Can I have your name, please? I'm sorry.
Carolyn Staple.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to to say that we're even having this debate. I find it disturbing. I find it disturbing that we get a source of income, such a big source of income from gambling. I know there's this sign I've seen once when I went to the casino, and it said, know your limit as you go out. Well, if we right now recognize that there's something like I think the last speaker said 5,000 people that have gaming issues, and for every one person, there are 17 affected. So now, if we move this casino to Hamilton, to a larger population, I wonder what the total of people would be that are addicted, and their family members and so forth. So I worry about that. Also, we have, I think in an hour, I could get to something like 6 casinos. And I'm just wondering why we need a bigger, larger casino when we already have so many that are, accessible for people. Having one in Hamilton, I guess you get public transit is just so easy to increase the gambling problem. So,
all right, thank you. Tony, you want to take a shot at this, or?
As I said from the outset, the money that Ontario Lottery and Gaming generates, that the province asks us to generate, goes back to the province. We generate $7 billion a year, that's on our lottery and gaming properties. $2 billion of that goes to the government for healthcare, $1.5 billion to hospitals, $500 million dispersed to education, health, charities, that type of thing as well too. And if we look at our business model as we exist, we were in trouble. We're a corporation. We're a revenue generator for the province of Ontario. And we saw that our profits to the province were flatlining. And in this day and age, when governments are facing greater deficits, and there's a greater need for increased revenues, They asked us if we can possibly do our part. But as a business, we have to look at our business model. And 10 years ago, our border facilities, Windsor, Niagara, Sault Ste. Marie, Point Edward, were generating $800 million. But because of factors across the border, the Canadian dollar, 9/11 passport restrictions, no smoking regulations, and increased competition on the other side of the border, those revenues are down to $100 million. Still sounds impressive, but for a revenue generator for the Government of Ontario, we need to keep up our part of this commitment. And we did look around the province, and we did see that there were areas of the province that the demand for gaming products there was an underservicement for it as well. And we looked at that, and that's why we decided to do this modernization program and also do some redirection of some of our gaming properties. We closed a few, and we're opening up a few as well, too, in areas that the customers want us to be.
Can I ask you, Tony, if I can expand on the question I think you asked, is why so many? Why 29?
In March of 2012, there were 27 properties. We closed down 3 properties in Windsor, Sarnia, and Fort Erie because there was an oversupply of gaming in that market. We are down to 24. We're proposing 5 new facilities, one in the Greater Toronto Area, one in North Bay, one in Belleville, one in Kenora, and one in Wasaga Beach, Collingwood area. Thank you. So that's 5 new facilities in areas that we believe that there is an underservice of our product. And this is something this is our business, and we need to understand, and we need to address what the needs of our customers are. And this is where they want us to be.
Thank you. Any other member of the panel? Doctor?
I hate to be a party pooper here, but let me say this. I agree totally that quite a bit of this money that we are raising is going to very good and noble social things. But think of it on the other side. This is a regressive tax. The poor are paying the greatest proportion of this tax. And in this respect, you have to balance. You have to balance, what this revenue is going for and who's paying for it. Would you not like to have this money spent on education and health, but let the rich pay for it, not the poor?
All right. You want to? Mr. Burns.
Just a comment, something that Dr. Cabersi just said. The one is that it is a popular form of entertainment. People make a choice to go. It's a value for money exercise, and they choose to spend their money, and people do that every day and how they want to spend their entertainment dollar. So be it, they go to a casino, the movies, horse racing, you pick it, people make their choices with their money. What we do know about gaming customers, though, and OLG has proven this out, is that a disproportion of their player base, an representative sample, comes actually from higher incomes. Casino players are generally older, wealthier, and better educated, and from a higher income bracket. That plays itself out in jurisdiction after jurisdiction. OLG has done the same analysis of their player base, and a strong representative from making over $75,000 a year because people make a choice with their entertainment dollars. And that's one thing that the customers of OLG are looking for new opportunities. And that's where they've seen their business decline in some places because it's not meeting their needs. And that's where they've chosen as a business operator to meet those demands.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to be here a long time when I look at the lineup there, so we're going to make it as tight as we possibly can, and would ask the cooperation of the panelists, please. Your name and your address, sir, and your question or comment.
Hi, my name's Ted Mansell. I'm the Executive Vice President of Service Employees International Union Local 2. We represent the workers at Flamborough Downs. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I understand that this is a very divisive issue in this community, and we will respect City Council's decision whether there will be a casino in Hamilton or not. But just for the record, for what it's worth, we represent employees in many different industries, including the racetrack industry in Ontario. We also represent brewery workers. And I would find it very odd to have a debate of whether we should go back to prohibition, because some people have a problem with alcohol. But that's an issue that council will need to deal with. My only main concern here tonight, as the union representing these employees, is we are adamantly asking council to please, if they approve a casino in Hamilton, to ensure it is located solely and specifically at Flamborough Downs in order to preserve the 3,000 direct and indirect jobs that we currently have in this community because of that facility. If a casino is put anywhere else in Hamilton, it will threaten those jobs, and we will see the largest loss of jobs in the Hamilton community in recent history. So please, I hope everybody here supports council. If they do go ahead with a casino in Hamilton, please ensure it's conditional on it being located specifically at Flamborough Downs in support of these jobs in our local community. Our kids have no other jobs to look forward to in this local community. We're losing jobs all the time. And to throw 3,000 people out of work to put 300 or 400 or 500 new jobs downtown, which is what I'm hearing the debate is, there will be a net loss of 2,500 to 3,000 jobs. It doesn't make economic sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question or comment, please. And again, your name and where you're from, please.
Elwyn Thornborough, and I am a Dundassian. All my life, I've lived and grew up in Waterdown, outside of Waterdown. My question is, because I am a horseman, I want to know what, if this casino does go through and does go into Flamborough, what percentage of it is going to go to the horse people? We don't even hear that from any of the panel.
All right.
We just hear about how they're going to help gambling. And I mean, they're already saying, the government's already said that out of that, we get 20% is 358 million goes to us. 10% goes to the horse, to the facility. 5% goes to the breeders, who a lot of people have gone and invested money in raising horses. And the other is gone to purses. But nobody's telling us that if this casino goes through, what are we going to get out of it?
All right, thank you. I think that it's probably fair to say that that's a provincial decision, and there's no provincial representative here, but I'm going to ask Bruce, perhaps, if you'd like to comment on that. Sorry to put you on the spot, Bruce. But
No, that's fine. As things exist today, we at Flamborough Downs are still in negotiations with the OLG for a lease, and that lease is for the OLG to be able to operate their slots at Flamborough Downs. And we're fairly confident that we and the OLG will reach a lease agreement. Now, having said that, right now the province's position is that money, any money from the lease arrangement with the OLG is not at this time earmarked for horse racing. The OMAFRA panel that I spoke about earlier is the panel that has been struck by Ted McMeekin to make money available for horse racing. They talk about a transitional fund. They talked about that within their both their interim and their final report. At this point in time, we don't know what that amount of money is. So at this point in time, we really can't say how much money will be available either for the racetracks to run racing or for horse people to run their horses for that purse. So at this point in time, there really has not been a definitive amount of money made available that we're aware of anyway. So.
Okay, sorry, but that's the best answer we have for you. Your name, your community, and your question or comment, please.
Okay, my name is Patricia. I live in Stony Creek, and my question originally was going to be to Hannah Holmes, but unfortunately she didn't make it tonight. I was on her website today and was wondering if she had ever conducted research, consulted, or published any papers in any journals related to gaming. So I will ask Dr. Kabursi if he's done this.
And as he contemplates his answer, let me just remind you again that Professor Hannah, oh help me with the name, Holmes, sorry, Hannah Holmes will be participating in tomorrow night's debate at City Hall. So maybe that will be helpful. Dr. Kabursi, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I published quite a bit, actually. I wrote a paper, and it's published on the cannibalization of gaming. You know, how can one measure this? What would be the upper limit and the lower limits on the extent to which casinos have taken money away from households and away from different competing businesses. I've done quite a bit that is not published, but in the public record, I've estimated the economic impact of horse racing on Ontario and the tracks and the hosting municipalities. I've done quite a bit on the review of the 3 commercial casinos. I was involved in every single study on the establishment of the major commercial casinos and reviews 6 months, 1 year, and 5 years. I was very much gung-ho on the casinos at the border where we bring the Americans, take their money, and send their problems back.
All right, thank you. Can we have the next question or comment, please?
Yes, hi.
Your name and your community, please, and then your question or comment.
I'm Kathy McMaster. I'm from Rockton, Ontario. So I'm Flamborough Ward 14. First, I have a comment because I brought my trusty little calculator with me. If we look at the population of Ontario, which is 12 million or thereabouts, and we look at the number of people who can gamble, it's probably 6 million or thereabouts. And if you put into this province 29 of those gambling facilities, you're putting in a facility for every 207,000 people. That really saturates the province, and it only tells me just how badly our province needs money. But I keep track of the deficit and the debt anyway, so I'm already aware of it. My question is the following. You say that you will approach private interests to build these casinos. Will you, in fact, have any control on the house return to the gambler? In other words, we look at Las Vegas, and I think the house return is 87%. What is the house return to the gambling individuals going to be with these casinos?
Thank you, Kathy. Tony?
Ma'am, we have that information on our website, and we're very open with it as well, too. Our slot machines, there is a regulation for our slot machines, and I believe it is 85% return on the life of those machines, and we have that public as well.
Okay.
So do I go with 85%?
And many times it is a little higher as well too, but the lowest limit is 85% on the rate of return.
All right, Paul Burns wants to...
It's set in regulation by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario to pay out minimum. In fact, the operating mine is probably closer to 92% in terms of the pay rate in the operating current environment in Ontario. The regulation sets a minimum, but the reality is that the operating parameters today in Ontario, it's probably about 92%. The games are regulated and overseen with the rules of play, and every machine is tested by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. So there is a third-party oversight to the industry. That will only get enhanced through this process with private operators. And it's also under the current RFPQ process that the OLG has instigated. They've laid down a number of operating parameters to the operators up front to saying this is sort of the outline of the framework in which you will be allowed to operate. So they are very prescribed.
All right, thank you. Your name, your community, your question or comment, please.
I'm Susan Wilkinson from Central Mountain in Hamilton. My question is for Mr. Barber. Come March, should the government cease subsidy to the horse racing industry, would horse racing continue at Flamborough? And if it doesn't, would a casino be more beneficial in Flamborough still or in Hamilton?
Bruce?
I'm qualified to make the comment on horse racing. I'm not sure about the economic dynamics of a casino in Flamborough versus Hamilton, but on horse racing, if there's no support coming out of the OMAFRA panel for horse racing after March 31st, there will be very little or no horse racing, not just at Flamborough, but in the province of Ontario. The pari-mutuel wager doesn't generate, with the exception of perhaps Woodbine, doesn't generate the kind of money that would allow racing to stay at Flamborough Downs. So, in effect, no, not without support.
Thank you. Are there any written questions from the floor that we haven't collected? You got some? Mike? Judy was going to formulate those questions. Mike's going to? Okay, go ahead.
Question 1 for Dr. Richardson. What research has gone into the impact and consequences that this will yield to youth if casinos move to a larger population, especially considering the introduction and rollout of online gambling?
So there's a fair amount of research out there. As I said earlier, there's a fair amount there, but there's also room for a lot more. Specific to the issue of youth, as I've talked about, there's because youth gambling is not legalized within Ontario, it's harder to find out those numbers. A lot of the survey methodologies and whatnot that are done don't necessarily address them, but there is evidence that there is youth gambling going on. In terms of internet gambling, that, as I understand it from the literature, and maybe Robert could answer this better than I, that internet gambling isn't well understood. There isn't a large percentage of the population participating in it at the present time, and it does apparently tend to have particular characteristics in terms of who participates in it. It tends to be better off gamblers who tend to also do casino gambling, as I understand it. But Robert, you may have some more to add.
Youth are a particular concern. We're, as you mentioned actually earlier in your presentation, we're now really, our youth are living in a gambling-saturated society. We've got gambling promoted everywhere. And it's oftentimes twinned with all sorts of very positive role models in that. If you think about poker, for example, and the role modeling that's happening there, a lot of kids that actually really sincerely believe they're going to grow up and become a professional gambler. If you look at our schools, we're getting reports all the time, all sorts of problems related to gambling happening in our schools. And there's a particular concern about the convergence of gambling and gaming. There's real similarities between the two. A lot of kids are getting over-involved in internet use and gaming. And there's some concern that our youth, through their gaming experiences, are actually becoming groomed to develop a problem with gambling later in life. The other thing that we're concerned about is that the expansion of gambling that's being contemplated not only includes internet gambling, and we believe, the OLG has talked, by the way, the OLG is, we think, pretty good at keeping youth out of casino-type operations. I can say that. They're good at that. They take that very seriously. We think that they're going to, they've talked about very, very stringent requirements around registration and that to keep youth from gambling on the internet. So that's good. We're concerned, though, about this vague notion about new technologies being looked at. For example, BC is now starting to offer gambling on mobile devices through your iPhones, for example. And there was an interesting comment made by somebody who did some research on youth on the market in BC. They had a collection of people, and there was a young lady there, and somebody talked about gambling over a handheld device, and she said, well, finally, you're talking to me. We're talking about gambling being available on any screen of any size that you can think of, and the gambling industry is clearly moving towards trying to appeal to a younger demographic, and the trend is to try to converge gambling with a gaming type experience. So I think we all should be concerned about our youth.
Thank you very much. I want to ask or give Paul Burns an opportunity to respond, but it perhaps also, Tony, if you're so inclined, because I think it's maybe the elephant in the room. I'm glad somebody asked the question about internet gambling and youth gambling and what role it plays and if they're the competition, the real competition that OLG is facing and so forth. But I'm going to start with Paul.
Internet gambling is here. It's been here. Ontarians, Canadians have had unfettered access probably for a better part of a decade. We've seen percentage of population go from 1% to 8% in less than a decade. And it's all illegal. That's the one part that a lot of people don't know. The current offering for gaming and for Ontarians, so whether it's PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker when they were in business, Bet365, it's here, and I can gamble on my mobile device today. OLG isn't going to start that direction. It's been there. People are there. Canadians are probably spending close to $10 billion a year online. Offshore gaming companies based in Europe and other parts of the world are reporting revenue out of Canada in excess of $1 billion a year. So what we're looking for as an industry, and we've been waiting for, is organizations like OLG to meet the market demand, but also in a regulated environment that meet the standards that Canadians expect and the provinces expect to deliver when it comes to access, problem gambling, and information and responsible gaming protections on those sites. And so we've seen that it's here. It's, I know that for a fact on sports betting alone, there's over $4 billion wagered by Canadians in offshore sports books right now. So those devices are here, the access is here. And the one strong point about gambling on the internet is you're no longer anonymous. That's the one strong point, is that the companies and organizations know who you are and know how to access you and know that you're a resort. So the point being is you can walk into a casino today and play with money and walk out and leave, and they don't know who you are. The fact of the matter is the internet is not anonymous. And so there are protections, but organizations like OLG, because there has been no law enforcement actions taken to restrict the offshore access to online gaming.
Thank you. I just want to alert the panel that I think that in the interest of everyone tonight, I'm going to give them an opportunity, those who want, to maybe wrap up with a minute or two at the end of the evening. So if there's something that you think you want to share that we didn't have the opportunity, I want to give you that opportunity. Your name and your hometown and a very familiar face and your question or comment, please.
My name is Jojo. I'm a resident of West Hamilton. I also have an interest in the horse racing business. It's pretty obvious that, or pretty well known, that the moves by OLG is pretty devastating the horse racing industry. I mean, everybody's worried. People are very nervous. And my question is two questions actually. One to the OLG member and also the Mr. Murray. You say you're negotiating with the OLG. Are you giving any consideration to racing at Flamborough or Georgian to keep the racing industry going? What consideration are you giving to help us survive? Because, I mean, we are dying as an industry. I'm talking about the racing industry. A lot of people here are very nervous about their jobs, their investments, and we don't hear anybody talking about helping us save this industry. And that kind of bothers us. So are you giving any consideration to doing something for us? What is it like? What can we expect from you if you get the support or get a new deal to give the casinos at Flamborough?
All right, I'm going to give Tony an opportunity to respond. And who was your second?
This one is for Mr. Murray, but I got another one for the OLG agent. Now, when you present the new model to make money for the province, it sounds very elegant, but I detect a very cynical approach to exploiting the poor to generate money for the government. Now, if you continue the way you're going with this new model and you make all the money that you want to make and destroy an industry like the horse racing industry, aren't we going to be a burden on the government again by going on welfare, unemployment? I mean, wouldn't it be better for us to be working and paying taxes to the government instead of trying to kind of take it out?
Thank you, Jojo. Tony?
First of all, I'd like to say I'm a big fan of yours, Jojo. I'm a former TV journalist, and I do remember you as well. As Bruce mentioned, and as the chair mentioned as well too, the decision to end the slots at racetrack funding was a government decision. What we asked is to end the prescriptive policy of the slots specifically at racetracks. If we're going to get the private sector involved, we need to give them options. And the old policy, which was a good policy at the beginning, that started in 1998, was the expansion of gaming and gambling in Ontario will be restricted to racetracks only. If you're going to get the private sector involved, you need to give them options. You can't tell them where they have to buy something. They won't buy it. If we're going to get the private sector involved, we're going to get their capital, we're going to have them take over the running of the day-to-day operations, we need to give them this option. And that's what OLG asked of the government, to end this prescriptive policy of limiting slots at racetracks only. The government, I apologize, I can't speak on behalf of the government, but it was clear in their budget that they decided that $345 million would be spent in other areas, and that's their decision. We are negotiating with each of the racetracks for a different arrangement from tenant to landlord, and we will be in those racetracks, we believe, for a while yet, because these are going to be short-term leases, 3 to 5 years, and we are expecting to hear from the horse transition panel on their funding as well, too. Beyond that, I can't say much. Horse racing has been a long-standing tradition in Ontario for 100 years. It was here before the Slots of Racetrack program. We firmly believe there will be a horse racing industry after the Slots of Racetrack program.
Second question, Jojo, make it quick, okay?
This is real quick. Now, I'm sure your studies revealed to you that, the racing industry will be devastated by your new moves. Okay, fine. Now, the business partners you're looking for, as far as we're concerned, are not interested in keeping racing going. That's our problem.
Okay, you've made the point. Now you got a question over here for, did you say Mr. Murray? Go ahead, Jojo.
Mr. Murray.
Mr. Burns. Okay. So what's your question, Jojo?
My question is, if we help you, if you get your new deal to get the slots at Flamborough, what guarantees can you give us as a racing community that you'll keep racing going? Can you give us any guarantees? Will there be racing at Flamborough?
Let me try if you want to add something to it. Okay. Let me just give him a chance to get his thoughts together. But we did have, we called this at the chamber, we're calling this Super Wednesday because we had a meeting this morning with Ted McMeekin, who's the Minister of Agriculture, as you know, and that was a big part of the discussion this morning. He brought John Snoblin with him, who's a member of the OMAFRA panel, and I think that it's fair to say, some of you were there this morning, I think it's fair to say that we can expect an announcement from the government on this issue shortly, and I hope and pray that at least there'll be some transitional funding to help the horse industry survive. So now I interjected that. Bruce, add what you can.
I think Aaron, you answered it as well as I could. It's exactly where we stand today as far as racing goes. Until we see what the OMAFRA panel presents to the industry, as Aaron said, expected either in the next few days or the next week. At that point in time, we'll have a better idea as to how much funds will be available for racing, not just at Flamborough, but in all of Ontario. So it really is a matter of waiting to see.
All right, I have one more comment over here on that question. Thank you, Jojo.
The one thing you have going for you in this community, and you must understand, is Great Canadian Gaming Corporation. They are the only company in the province that operates and owns a racetrack right now that also can operate a casino. They operate great facilities in British Columbia. None of the other racetracks, except for Georgian Downs, which they also own, is in that same position. And so I think that the chance of racing continuing, is greater with a company like them that operate horse racing and know how to operate horse racing. And I think that you're fortunate to have a good local partner in that regard right now. They have to bid for this. There's no guarantees, but the process is that know that you've got a company that knows horse racing and knows the casino gaming industry, and not every other track community has such a thing going for them.
All right, thank you. Michael, you got the next written question.
This question's for Tony. Tony, we have heard that regardless of this decision, slot machines are inevitable in Hamilton's downtown bingo halls. Is this true?
Slot machines are inevitable in downtown bingo halls. Is this true? Tony?
So this is a question I've been answering for the last several days, and I can emphatically say no. The issue of the revitalization of the bingo industry in comparison to what's happening to the horse racing industry are two different issues. They're trying to be clouded together, but I have to tell you that there are two different issues. The revitalization of bingo started back in 2005 when, ironically, slots were put into racetracks. And bingo halls started to see a decline. Also, in the addition of the no smoking ban, the decline was sped up, definitely was sped up. So the industry itself came up with a plan, and their plan was to innovate. Bingo innovation over 30 years was from cardboard cards to paper cards, and from discs that you put on the numbers to dabbers. That was the innovation in the bingo industry. So they really saw the light and saw that they really had to change, or they would not be an industry anymore. And this is an industry that really focuses on charities. There is a small staff in a bingo hall, but the majority of people that are there are volunteers for charities. So if the bingo halls die off, the charities die off, or the funding for the charities die off. And right now, there are 61 bingo halls compared to 230 bingo halls 10 years ago. And there are 3,000 charities depending on those 61 bingo halls. 10 years ago, there were 6,000 charities. So they asked OLG to get the heads together along with the bingo operators and the charities, and they asked us to introduce electronic gaming. We piloted this electronic games. Whatever traditional games there are in a bingo hall, whether it be bingo, shuttlerboard, rapid draw bingo, or break open tickets, there was now going to be an electronic version of that. And you'll also have the option to play the paper-based bingo as well, too. So you'll have that option, and this is what has been piloted over the last 6 years, since 2005. 2010, the government gave us the go-ahead to help the bingo industry roll this out, and this is what we're doing right now. So there are electronic games in bingo halls, but there's electronic bingo, electronic shutterboard, and break-open ticket dispensers. And really, this is what, Chairman, if you allow me a few more moments, this is really what is at the heart of the issue, is the break-open ticket dispensers. The evolution of break-open tickets went from asking the retailer to put their hand in the plexiglass box, grab you a bunch of tickets, and you stand there and you break them open. Then we went to a mechanical dispenser. You put your coin in the dispenser, you pull a lever. I'm not supposed to say this, but it looks like an old cigarette machine. You pull the lever and the ticket falls out, you break open the ticket. Now we have a box of tickets that are fed into a high-tech ticket scanner. You put in your coin, you press the button, the ticket comes out, you break open the ticket, and the innovation here is you see the representation of that ticket on a display screen. Slot machine is very different. Slot machine has a computer brain. Slot machine has a random number generator. Slot machine has a variety of plays, and Dr. Murray and everyone and Dr. Richardson told us what the difference, what you can do with a slot machine. These are not slot machines. These are high-tech ticket scanners that spit out a ticket, and this is what the bingo industry helped develop over the last 6-7 years, and this is what we're implementing today. And because OLG is responsible for electronic games in the province of Ontario, that's why we're involved in this as well too. So the short answer is no slot machines at bingo halls. The real answer is electronic ticket dispensers at bingo halls, along with electronic bingo and paper bingo as well.
Thank you. Mr. Murray.
And for the installation of automated gambling machines in bingo halls. In fact, we're providing training to those centers on how to manage that innovation to the bingo industry. And I just have to say, we have concerns. These are automated gambling machines. They're not strictly a slot machine, as was stated, because they don't have a random number generator in it. But the type of experience that the player will have with the automated gambling machines will be very similar to the experience of slot machine play. That's a concern. And so we feel that there isn't that big a distinction that exists here between those machines and slot machines as portrayed by the previous speaker. There just isn't. And that's being confirmed, by the way, by a fellow out of the University of Waterloo, a Dr. Harrigan, who's done in-depth research on slot machines, and he's actually visited with one of my staff to one of these facilities, and he also has major concerns.
All right, thank you. Your name, community, question or comment, please.
My name is Amar. I'm from Hamilton East Mountain. I have a question, I guess, for Dr. Richardson. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank the entire panel. You guys have all shed a lot of light on a lot of important issues. So, I mean, obviously applause is due for the entire panel. But specifically for Dr. Richardson, I know you said that, a two-part question. First part, you said when you were brought on your original role, that there wasn't much of a mandate towards casino gambling trends and effects on health. So have you had a lot of research opportunities on this matter prior to being brought on by the City of Hamilton for your report? Number one. Number two, actually through Twitter, a friend of mine put me across a research article by a professor from Laval University, Professor Ladouceur, I believe it was. And actually the findings are almost starkly the opposite of what you stated with regards to proximity and the fact that risk gamblers or problem gamblers are more likely to occur in an area that's closer proximity to a casino. So I mean, it's just completely contradicting. I just don't know if you've come across that or if you've read it yourself.
All right, thank you for your comment, Dr. Richardson.
So a couple of things. If you could just, before you leave the mic, just what were you saying that Ladouceur found? Because I think I misunderstood what you said.
That the perceived theory or threat of increased problem gamblers is not in correlation with, has nothing to do with correlation to proximity.
Okay. All right, so just to clarify a few things, my role in particular is not around gambling for the City of Hamilton. That's not, and I wasn't brought on to do this study. I'm the medical officer of health, so I've been for 14 years overseeing the public health programs. What I was saying is that gambling as a public health issue has really emerged over the last 30 years and then become something that public health units, medical officers of health have paid more attention to of late. And as well, we run a treatment program that is funded by the province. So I'm not a researcher, and I wouldn't pretend to be. I mean, the people at CAMH, such as Mr. Murray here, and many others know far more about the science of gambling and the health, the effects and all those sorts of things. I'm a consumer of that research, and so we look more broadly at research that comes from many, many sources. And Toronto Public Health did do a what's called a systematic review, which means you look at all the studies that are done out there, sort out which ones are of higher quality and less high quality, and try to summarize the results that come from those. And so as I said when I was speaking earlier, I'm not surprised that you can find studies that show something different. And we find that in every aspect of research. I'm sure you can agree with that. And as well, we find that throughout health and medicine that you'll find studies that show one thing and another study that shows something else. And that's why we need to look at all of the studies taken together. So when you look at the issues of accessibility and proximity, when you look at all of that together, and that's what Toronto did just recently along with CAMH, they did find that proximity overall in that research does have a role to play in terms of the incidence of problem gambling. So I think that I think you had asked 2 questions about my role in particular with respect to it and about that study in particular. So I hope I've covered off what you're asking.
Thank you. Dr. Kaburski, do you have any comment on the question?
Well, I mean, it's a valid point that he's bringing about, and that this area has so many different contributions, and that there is no unanimous findings here. But certain things are incontrovertible. I mean, one thing we know, that close proximity is a direct relationship with the increase in problem gambling. Accessibility is an important factor. Now, this is independent of the size of population, I understand that. I mean, you could really have a small casino in a small area, but it's in the backyard of everybody, and you would expect to see the proportion of the population with gambling problems to rise. But this is independent of the size population, but this does not in any way invalidate that accessibility is a major cause.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
With respect, there really is consensus in the field that increased accessibility increases participation rates in problem gambling. And if you want to verify, at least in terms of participation rates, Just look at what the gambling industry is wanting to do here in Ontario. They're wanting to increase accessibility in order to grow the business. That's why they're doing it. It's a commercial reason. And I'm sorry, good or bad, that will lead to increased gambling rates and just inevitably an increase in the people who are negatively affected.
Thank you. Michael, you're up.
This question is for OLG from Tony Simeone from Waterdown. Do we know who the new private operators are going to be, and how does one qualify for becoming an operator?
We're not at that stage yet where we've put out the formal request for proposals. We still have to hear from the municipality in terms of what direction they want to take. The debate that we're having here tonight is something similar that they've had in the city of Ottawa. Very different than what's happening in Toronto, because Toronto would be a new facility, but in Ottawa, same type of debate. Do we keep it at the racetrack, or do we keep it, or do we move it downtown? And that, again, will be up to the private sector operator. Once we hear from the municipality on which direction they want to go, whether open up the city or keep it just at the racetracks, then we will put out the request for pre-qualification, which is really to get the best of the best and get us a short list, and then we'll forward on to, they'll be invited to the request for proposal stage, which will actually be the bids. We hope to have a decision in 2013 or very early in 2014 once the procurement process goes through.
I'm going to run a risk here that I'm going to get into trouble, Tony, but have you not already completed the pre-qualification process? Have you not identified those who are eligible to bid?
No, not for every zone. Right now, we have pre-qualifications out for Ottawa, for Eastern Ontario, and for Northern Ontario. Those are the three, three areas that we've gone out to, because in those areas, the municipalities have made their decisions whether they want to be willing hosts. We have better ideas of where those facilities are going to be. And this is a massive procurement project, one of the biggest in Ontario. We have to do it in phases. We have to wait for the municipalities as well to make their decisions. And in order for our people to do it properly and be able to manage this whole big process, we do need to do it in phases. So,
well, let me ask another question in an attempt to be helpful. What are the basic criteria to qualify that would allow an entity to bid?
Sure. So you really do have to be a gaming operator. You have to have some experience in the gaming industry. If you decide that you want to open up Joe's slot company and think you can run a gaming facility, and you put your bid and you put your qualifications in, I have a feeling that you're not going to be able to be there. But you have to show us that you are qualified, that you have worked in the industry, show us your financials, various other credentials to show us that you are legitimate. And there are a lot in this country. There are a lot in North America, a lot around the world. So we'll look at the best of the best. And then we will boil that down and then invite that group to the RFP stage.
All right. Your comment or question, your name and your hometown, please.
My name is Pat Huru, and I'm from North Burlington, but this affects us because my husband has standard bred horses, and he has the horses that he trains are qualified for Flamborough, cannot race at the big tracks like a lot of people here. And we are the majority of the horse racing people because not the minority have the big horses that make the big money. That's the minority. The majority of horse people are the ordinary farming people with 3 or 4 horses. And this is their living, our living.
I hear you, but now tonight's meeting is about casinos.
No, it's about gambling. This is about gambling. Now, my question here is that horse racing should never be put in the terms of gambling, because when you gamble, you pull a lever on a slot machine. But my question is now, why? Well, it's a comment. I'm allowed a comment.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
It's a comment, not a question, a comment. My comment here is that why the OLG should put gaming to do with horse racing. When you game, you pull a lever, you throw a card. With horse racing, anyone who's in the industry, you look at a sheet. The sheet tells you the qualifications of the horse, tells you the class the horse is racing in, tells you its past lines, and you are betting on maybe 8 or 9 horses, and if a person is in the industry or betting on the horses, it's not gaming.
I hear you. Thank you for your comment. Okay, the next person, please, your name and your community and your question or comment, please.
Hi, my name's Brian Tropey. I'm the general manager of the Ontario Harness Horse Association. I'm from Rockwood, but many of my members are living in the Flamborough and Hamilton area. During the gaming modernization process, we had an opportunity. I personally met with the OLG, and during that discussion, we were told that absolutely that the OLG understood that there had to be a revenue sharing agreement with the horse people. If it wasn't for horse racing, there would be no slot program. Going back to '98 when the referendums were done, the people of Ontario voted then that they didn't want slots. That's why they came to the racetrack, and it was an agreement. Based on those agreements and based on the fact that we always had what was categorized as a successful partnership with the OLG, and the fact that the OLG entered into an additional 5-year renewal term within the last 2 years, these people that are sitting in the audience today invested tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, that they'll never have a chance to recoup. As the official spokesperson for the OLG, what would you like to say to these people?
Tony, you're on.
As I've said before, and I continue to say, we respect the horse racing industry. It's a long tradition in Ontario, and there was horse racing before there was the slots at racetrack program. It's a government policy to end the funding to slots at racetracks. We asked for the prescriptive location restrictions to be lifted, and the government lifted that, but then they went a little further and decided that their funding, that their priority was not for this industry. And again, we believe that there will be a horse racing industry after the slots. But the slots aren't leaving right now. Slots will be here for a while, and it will be up to the private sector to decide whether they do want to keep the slots at the racetracks or not. We have to look at some of the properties that are out there. Again, Great Canadian is great work. We have a great working relationship with them. And some of the racetracks are where the customers are in downtown locations. Western Fair in London, downtown. In Innisfil, 2 minutes from downtown Barrie. So is it going to be gone entirely? We don't believe so, but it will be up to the private sector to decide what they want to do with those gaming facilities and if they want to continue to be a renter at the racetracks. And they will be working with the racetracks on this.
I'm going to suggest to you folks, it's 8:35 or so, that we give the people that are in line an opportunity to speak, and that will shut it down at that point. So we still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 people there. Let's see where that brings us for time, and then we'll perhaps wrap it up. Your name, community, question, or comment, please.
My name's Michelle, and I'm from Waterdown. I wanted to address everybody here and the councillor members here I'm not against gambling. I'm in the horse racing business, and that's basically how we make our living. But it's the agreement with the OLG and the provincial government that makes me very worried. In their modernization plan, they talk about on one page that we have too many gambling sites in Ontario. We're cannibalizing each other. 2 pages later, they want to put in 29. They have 4 casinos in Ontario. In 2011, they lost, I think it says, $92 million. The slots at racetracks made $924 million. They want to push 29 casinos on municipalities, and they have 4 that are losing money. They've explained in their financial highlights here why it's lost money or the revenue has gone down. Those circumstances have not changed. We still have passports. We still have no smoking. All that stuff is the same. How is a new casino, actually 29 of them, going to make this city and every other municipality that you're trying to sell this to more money? $5 to $7 million. Well, the slots already make 4+. I asked the police commissioner, although no significant increase in crime rate, what's the estimated increase in cost to our policing services?
All right. Deputy Chief. We don't know,
Exactly.
in all honesty.
I don't think the OLG knows what the city's actually going to make. They say that they're trying to get to the customer. The customer wants us to be more accessible to them. They lost money at 4 of them.
All
If they were
right,
making a ton of money,
you've made your point. Thank you very much.
nobody's going.
Thank you. All right, your name, your community. I'm sorry. Yes, Tony, I'm sorry.
I would like to address one of the comments. There are not going to be 29 new casinos out there. There are currently 24 facilities out there. We're proposing 5. We're proposing 5 new facilities out there. We closed 3 down because we were looking at our business model. So there are not 29 new casinos out there. Casinos are here. Slot facilities are here. Slot facilities and gambling is...
All right, thank you. You've made your point. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Tony.
No,
I should have given
and I just wanted to point that out. So it's not 29 new facilities out there. It's 5 new facilities. And again, OLG provides $2 billion in profit to the government of Ontario. Based on our $7 billion revenues.
Your name and community and question or comment, please.
My name is Matthew Green, and I'm from the No Downtown Casino community. And my comment first is this, Mr. Atif Kabersi, Dr. Kabersi, I appreciate that you're here. 10 years ago, I sat in one of your classrooms, and in fact, it was your study that you wrote in conjunction with Don Jaffrey in '96 when Hamilton passed on a downtown casino the first time that led me on this mission. So for that, I thank you. And to Dr. Richardson, I thank you as well. Although I'll comment on this, I find it ironic that the only 2 doctors on this entire panel have been questioned about their credentials. So following the lead of my friend from Carmen's, I'd like to ask the gentleman on this side, I'm not sure which one of you guys has a PhD, but I would like to ask Mr. Burns, who is the only lobbyist that is unregistered here in Hamilton, what evidence-based research do you have to present, sir? What papers have you written, sir? And what qualifies you to be here educating us on a downtown casino?
Mr. Burns.
I don't have a PhD. I haven't written any papers. As an association, we have asked a lot of academics to write papers on behalf of the industry, and there's a number on our website, canadiangaming.ca, including a more recent series dealing with some of the issues we're talking about tonight. My background in gaming goes back to the Slots at Racetrack program as a policy advisor in the Harris government. Back in 1997. I'm not new to Flamborough. I remember sitting between the Horsemen and Mr. Juravinsky during one of what have become some legendary disputes over the years when whether we'll call it a lockout or a strike occurred between the Horsemen's Association and the track. I'm very familiar with the industry in Ontario. I was part of the group when the last opportunity came along for the private sector to get involved in Ontario in the mid-90s. That was part of the development of the Brantford Casino until we were asked to step aside by the Ontario government because they wanted to do it. I have been in communities like this all over Canada and especially all over Ontario talking about gaming. I have seen the results of the industry. The good people that work in this industry that also buy groceries in communities, live in communities, and volunteer in communities, and raise money for community organizations. That it's a positive career experience. So as I look at it, I have a long history in the industry, and from a public policy perspective as well as from an operational perspective. So I bring that to this community.
All right, thank you. Your name, your community, and your question or comment, please.
Yes, Jeremy Skirman, farmer from Millgrove, Ontario. As a Christian, I share a deep concern for what this does to our poor, our disadvantaged, those who maybe have who are vulnerable to addictions or codependence. To the OLG, we don't need this in our town. Our downtown has enough problems the way it is. to our city councilors who see this as a revenue stream, you've spent us into a hole. And some of you sitting here tonight are responsible for this. Don't think this is the magic pill, because it's never going to work. These social problems will result in more costs to our government at different levels. We do not need a casino in this city. To the OLG, I want to ask, what price do you put on these social problems?
I'm not sure that you have an answer for that, Tony, but you're welcome to comment.
Again, we realize that gambling does have an inherent risk, and a small percentage of the population is at risk. We've talked about that. We've admitted that. We're not burying our heads in the sand, and we're not running away from that. But we have a mandate from the government to provide gaming entertainment in Ontario, but we also have a mandate by the government to provide responsible gambling. I know it's somewhat ironic, and we admit that, but this is what we have to do, and $40 million of gambling revenue does go into responsible gambling programs. CAMH is a beneficiary of that. A lot of research is benefits from that as well too. And as we go along, as we learn a lot more from what's happening out there, we'll get better as well too. We're providing an entertainment option, and no one's being forced to go to these facilities. No one's being forced to go to these facilities, and you have a choice if you want to go or you don't want to go. And 8 million people play the lottery each year. 2.3 million people visit our casinos at least once a year. They're making an entertainment choice. And this is what our mandate is, and we have a double-edged mandate, and we will serve the people of Ontario that way.
Okay, Donna, you're up.
Sorry. Donna Skelly, I'm from Ancaster, but I'm also the progressive conservative candidate here in this riding for the province of Ontario. I have two questions to the representative from the OLG, and the first question is, can you give us the breakdown on where the money will go if a new casino comes into Hamilton? For every dollar that is gambled at the casino, how much goes to the casino operator owner, how much will go to the city, how much will go to the province, and what percentage is used to cover the costs of the OLG? And my second question...
Just a minute, that's a great question. Let me just let them answer that, okay? So the divvy up of the gambling dollar. We'll get to your second question in a minute.
Sure, so there is a funding formula in place right now that has been modified. So currently, Hamilton receives 5% on the first 450 slot machines, and then a blended rate of 2%. So as I mentioned, and I'm just trying to look for the numbers, it's about $4.5 million a year that the city gets in terms of that. The funding formula is changing. Come April 1st, the city will now receive 5.25% based on revenue, the first 65 million. So we're looking at a possible increase of between $5 and $7 million annually. Then they will develop, and we're not into the tax assessment portion of it, but we've been told that perhaps tax revenues could go up to $1 to $3 million per year. That goes to the city. We're looking at the jobs, the associated wages with that as well too.
Let me just come back to the gaming dollar.
Yep.
Somebody puts $1 into a slot machine. How is that divvied up?
That's where we get into the complexities, because it's based on how much they put in, how much comes out.
All right, just a minute.
But again, it's not as clear. You believe me if you believe me, you don't if you don't. But it's not as clear cut, because slot machines return a certain amount. If you go to table games return a different amount, because there's a labor cost associated with table games.
Tony, I'm going to invite you to come tomorrow night and answer that question.
I will try, definitely.
Right.
Maybe the same answer.
Yeah. Your second question, Donna.
My second question is, the current government is running a deficit about $14 billion. This didn't happen overnight. So why is there such a rush to ram these casinos through communities? You have given us a bit of an extension to talk about this, but this is such an emotional issue. It is highly charged, it's highly divisive. Why not give communities an opportunity to hold a referendum and let people decide if they want a casino? What's the rush? It appears as if there is a hidden agenda.
We announced the modernization of our industry back in March of 2012. We began consultations with municipalities about a month later as we announced the gaming zones, and we have been in consultations with these municipalities since then. Some municipalities are done their consultations, and some are still in the midst of it. Toronto's in the midst of it. Ottawa is complete. Under the old OLGC Act of 1999, there is the municipalities can choose what they want to do in terms of consultation. There is no prescription for a referendum, but if they wish, they can. If they wish to hold consultations, they can. It's not written in legislation. So we appreciate, we respect the consultations that are going on. In various communities, we were up in the Collingwood-Wasaga Beach area. We were there 5 times for consultations. We had a regional meeting for 500 people. We had a meeting just with Wasaga Beach with 300 people. We had a meeting just with Collingwood with 200 people. And then they conducted a web poll. So we really do respect and appreciate what these municipalities are doing. And if you look at some of the voting records of by-elections and some referendums, the amount of people that actually come out to vote in percentage-wise compared to how many people are coming out to consultations or voting on web polls and Facebooks and having their voices heard through emails and stuff like that, there's a higher percentage of that population speaking now as there are in when municipalities have by-elections sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you. We're down to the last 2.
Good evening. My name is Rick Hishon. I'm from Dundas Center. Like that. So I have a couple of things I want to just touch base about tonight. And I guess my first question would be, is there anyone here from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario as a rep?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's too bad. So I'll address my remarks to the deputy chief, so he'll pass it on. Anyways, one of my great concerns, so I'll just let you know, everybody, I am a good customer of the OLG and Bruce's establishment, but I've gambled all over the world in different places and everything else like that, in different countries, different parts of Canada and everything else like that. My main point is, and what I've seen, and I'm going to take exception to what Bruce said a little bit ago about the payouts that are happening in the casinos nowadays. The information that he put forth about 92% or 91 and 92% came from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission that did that study in 2009 and published it in 2010 on behalf of the OLG. I would dare to say nowadays, which is basically, and we're in the 4th year later, that those percentages have gone down and they're operating fairly close to that 85% minimum, possibly lower. I have I'd say my word would be the complicity between the OLG and the operators. I'd have some question in deciding whether there's a arm's length transaction.
All right, you've got to be careful with your
No,
words.
I understand that, so
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it
So
at
wrap it
that.
up.
Yeah, just because the, I can give you lots of examples over, 2012, and I can go back to 1992 if you wish, but I've seen what Flamboro's had and done over the last 20 years, or close to 20 years that they've been, and you're putting more in the machines, and you're getting less out of them. And, I go away for 2 weeks on holidays in November. I come back and I look, and all the penny machines that are on the one wall up there have gone from maximums 125 or 150 units or, $1 or $1.25. And now they're 250 and 300.
Okay, I hear you. Rick, thank you for your comment. I would challenge the panel that somebody look up the matter of the return back to the better. I think that's an important figure.
Yeah, and the one, excuse me, just the one other thing, and this is for our council. I know, it's just a comment for the council.
Okay, very quickly.
Is that they made a very big mistake when they didn't put Ivor Wind down on the west end.
We're not talking about Ivor Wind tonight. We're not talking about Ivor Wind.
But I'm just saying.
Thank you, Pat.
Just one comment on that, all I can say is that it will never be below 85 because machines are designed and tested and programmed to not perform less than that and allowed on the floor. So the operator can't even deliver a machine that could even possibly do something like that. Could it be less than 92? Yes, it could, but it would never be less than 85.
Never less than 85. Your name, your community, your question. Oh, I'm sorry, Doctor.
One comment, it doesn't matter. Let it be 99%. Let it be any number, because the first time you play, say it's 90%, you play it, you get 90% back. You put the 90%, you get 81%. You put the 81, you get 72. You put the 72, 60. It won't take long before they wipe you out.
Okay, I'm going to lay awake all night trying to figure out that math. Thank you for that comment. Your name, your community, your question or comment, please.
Yeah, it's Wayne Smith from Mount Hope, Ontario. And as a community, really appreciate this. And I really, really appreciate the people on the right-hand side, my right-hand side. I think if the counselors are paying any attention, I think you got a lot of good information here tonight in regards to gambling. I've been going to the races since I was this high. I don't have a gambling problem. I really enjoy going to the races. I've gone to the casinos. A lot of what those people are saying, when I'm sitting here analyzing what they're saying, now I can see it. I think if the casino is a place where you have to drive to, chances are if you have to drive to it, you own a car. Chances are you pay insurance on a car. Chances are you have money. Chances are you can afford to lose money. That doesn't mean you can't become addicted. I have a hard time with OLG and the province of Ontario. The OLG is fighting their ass off here to bring the bingos back in this province, but I don't see the OLG. I disagree with a woman here who's into horses. Gambling is gambling. If I take money out of this pocket and put it somewhere and I don't have a chance of getting the full amount of that money back, it's gambling.
You got to wrap it up.
Okay, so the problem I have is OLG is fighting their hearts out to keep bingo and OLG. What is the problem with making a partnership with the horse racing business and fighting your ass off to save the horse racing industry?
I think that question has been asked 6 or 7 or 8 different ways tonight.
Okay, it's a mandated issue, but we have a whole bunch of counselors here from our municipality, and I really appreciate them being here. You better take a drive out into the community. For the counselors that live in downtown Hamilton, take a drive out in the community and realize how many jobs are going to be lost here.
All right, I heard you. Thank you. I'm sure the councilors heard you too. We're just glad that they came up the hill. Thank you. Mike, is one more question? Okay.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joe Tradak, and I'm a resident of Flamborough. I'm a farmer, I'm a horseman, I'm a breeder, and I'm a player. And what I don't understand, why doesn't the OLG just leave it as it is and add your casinos? Number 2, I'm disappointed that Mr. McKeegan, my representative, is not here, who's the Minister of Agriculture, who should be fighting for us horsemen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the clock that I'm looking at says it's 3 minutes to 9, and I think we're going to wrap it up. I remind you all of tomorrow night's meeting. Before we close tonight, I promised the panelists an opportunity for a 1-minute. Please listen to them, see what they have to say. Let's extend them that courtesy, those who want to. And then tomorrow night, the discussion continues at Hamilton City Hall. I'm going to start over here. Dr. Percy.
Just only to say that casinos are there, they are probably coming, but you really need to make sure that whatever you get, You get it after a thorough examination, and it should reflect the preferences and the wishes of people, and it should be a balanced way where we get the maximum benefits and minimize the social costs that they are real and they're there.
Thank you. Dr. Richardson?
I don't think I have much to add beyond Dr. Kabursi. That approach in terms of making sure we're making an informed decision, one heads up, eyes wide open, about what the issues are associated with gambling and problem gambling, whether they're health issues, social issues, economic issues, and making decisions that keep that ideal of maximizing the best benefit for our community in mind. And so considering all the factors that influence those things, what would be the decision related to that? And so just thanks again for the opportunity to be part of the panel tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Murray?
You know, just representing my organization, we're just very pleased that we've been able to participate in a session like this, and we're trying to support a broad range of agencies that we work with to have similar kinds of inputs into the decisions that are made in the communities that they serve. Yeah, the best choice that you can make is one that's well-informed. So I congratulate you for being here and participating in this. And if you want further information from our end, certainly you can access it through problemgambling.ca.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
I'd just like to say thank you. I think that a great, healthy debate, and again, the Canadian Gaming Association has many studies and information on our website, canadiangaming.ca. And also, just to say that you, for horse racing industry, and the opportunity does lie in having to say yes to a casino, and then where the community chooses to have it becomes the next decision. So you're going about it the right way, and look forward to tomorrow night.
Thank you. Deputy Chief?
Our role is community and public safety, and so wherever the decision is to put a casino, or if there's not, we'll continue to work with all our partners to ensure that this community remains safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Thank you very much. I'd first like to thank the city for having this opportunity to speak tonight and again tomorrow night. I think I'd like to leave the group with really one comment. Great Canadian and Flamborough is committed to horse racing at Flamborough Downs, but to be sure, we do need support from the government for horse racing to continue after March 31st at Flamborough Downs or in the province of Ontario. So I'll leave that with
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you very much. I respect all of your comments, all of your questions. I hope I've provided some information. There's more information out there on modernolg.ca about what the experiences from the other communities are. And Mayor Bertina is on there as well too. The benefits to Hamilton are easily demonstrated. And we'll see what the council decides, and they are your representatives. They will make the best decisions out there. And thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow night.
I just want to make two very quick comments in closing. We at the Flamborough Chamber of Commerce understand the importance to the local economy of horse racing and slots at Flamborough Downs. And we're very concerned that if those two things are ended at Flamborough Downs, that it's going to have a huge, devastating impact on the local economy. So understand that we're working as hard as we can, both in front of the cameras and behind the scenes, to lobby for that. I want to finish with this thought. I'm a child of the 60s. I studied in the United States. I went to university during the 60s. It was the era of civil rights, of the Vietnam War, of the assassination of JFK and RFK and Martin Luther King. Today is Martin Luther King's birthday. And I came across this quote today, and I want to share it with you in the hope that it will lead us to a constructive and positive decision. This is what Martin Luther King said. Rarely do we find men and women who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains people more than having to think. Let's all go home thinking about what we've heard tonight.